Welcome in to Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, April 17th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, we've got some fun prospect promotions to talk about. We'll fire up the worryometer for 6 struggling hitters early on in the season. Jared Jones and Ranger Suarez were both awesome once again, and we will get into those names right now.
Oh my goodness! Unbelievable!
All right, Chris, you are up. Your player of the night.
We've got to talk about Jared Jones at the top, right? I mean, I don't think there's a more interesting or exciting pitcher in baseball than Jared Jones, who just casual dominance yet again today against the New York Mets. 5 shutout innings. I guess kind of disappointing that he only had 5 shutout innings, but he mentioned after the game that was the plan, no matter what happened, basically. That he was going to throw five innings, whether it took him 90 pitches or, in this case, 59 pitches. And I get it. It's frustrating to see him pulled when he was cruising that way, but I find it hard to hold the fact that he was so good that he was pulled after 59 pitches against him. I don't know about you, but I've seen like some consternation, like this is going to hold his value back. And I don't know. He's awesome. Maybe he can't stay healthy, but he struck out 7. He allowed 1 walk or 1 hit, no walks. How high is too high to rank Jared Jones right now? That's the question I'm asking myself, because if you told me Jared Jones and every other starting pitcher in baseball were going to throw 160 innings this season, top 10?
Maybe.
Like, is he one of the 10 best pitchers in baseball right now? Like, I think I have gotten criticism at times for being too slow to change my opinions about players at times. And in this case, I find myself having to pump the brakes on how high I want to rank Jared Jones, because I think he might be Spencer Strider. I don't know. Like, he has maybe the best fastball in baseball right now. Based on the Stuff Plus model on Fangraphs, he has the best slider or fastball in baseball. He also has a slider that's like a top 15 pitch in baseball. His curveball and changeup, which he rarely throws, also look really good by the Stuff Plus metrics. He has, I think, 2 walks in his first 4 starts, which was the biggest question coming in for him. I don't know. I'm trying to not get too excited about Jared Jones, but I didn't have him as a top 75 starting pitcher coming in, and I've moved him into my top 30 already. I moved him to 26 after tonight, which is just behind Joe Musgrove, Chris Sale, and Joe Ryan. Now, I think you could quibble with Joe Musgrove, certainly given how he's pitched, but he has a long enough track record that I'm not going to hold that against him. And then Joe Ryan is another guy who doesn't have a super long track record of success, but pitched like an ace in the first half of last season. Then he got hurt, comes back out this season, has this harder slider, harder splitter, and he's pitching like an ace. He's been just as impressive as Jared Jones, arguably. Thank you to my cat for contributing to the conversation. I'm going to move her, excuse me. And so I moved him right behind Joe Ryan, because I just can't really justify moving him ahead of Joe Ryan. But like, then I look a little higher in the rankings and like, I don't know if Jesus Luzardo is better than Jared Jones. I have him like 8 spots higher, so maybe I just need to move Jesus Luzardo down, but I don't want to overreact to his poor start.
Mm-hmm.
Grayson Rodriguez seems more bankable than Jared Jones, but we haven't seen a stretch this good from Grayson Rodriguez yet. I don't know, man. I think you can absolutely make a case that Jared Jones on a per inning basis right now is one of the 12 best pitchers in baseball, and he threw like 126 innings last season. So I don't see why he can't get to 170.
I think where you moved him in the rankings, I haven't updated my rankings yet. I plan to do that on Wednesday. I think it makes sense. I think it's a good hedge of your bet, because for every start that he looks this good, you could just keep moving him up.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that yet, right? Like, you don't need to put him in your top 20 or top 15, but for every start that he looks this dominant, you can just continue to leapfrog some of these either veterans that haven't looked as good or guys that are getting off to slow starts. the Luzardos,
Mhm.
Max Fried. I know his last start was good, but he struggled. Blake Snell off to a slow start. Chris Sale, you still have him ranked ahead. I have him ranked ahead. It's kind of been a mixed bag so far for Chris Sale. Same thing with Joe Musgrove. So for every start that Jared Jones looks this dominant, we can continue to move him up. But I think where you have him right now makes sense.
I mean, this is like maybe the most aggressive ranking I've ever had for a pitcher 4 starts into his career. But I really do think I think the Spencer Strider comp is the upside comp, certainly. And I don't know, man. This was the second highest strike percentage in a start in the pitch tracking era. So since 2008, he threw 50 of 59 pitches, 4 strikes in this start. It's just, it's hard to overstate how good he is. And somehow he has 1 win in 4 starts.
Yep. That's, I think partially, I can't say it's a Pirates thing because the Pirates actually have been pretty good this year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of luck that goes into wins and losses for pitchers. So I'm not going to quibble with that, but I did want to bring up some other fun Jared Jones stats that I saw on Twitter here on Tuesday. Per the Pirates account, Jared Jones now has 7 or more strikeouts in each of his first 4 career games. He is the first major league player since 1893 to accomplish this feat, joining Masahiro Tanaka, Steven Strasburg, and Jose De Leon. Very interesting group of Jose De Leon.
Jose De Leon always shows up in those kind of things, and it makes me really sad that he was never able to stay healthy.
And then this one, per Sarah Langs, Jared Jones's 73 swings and misses are the most by a pitcher in his first 4 career starts in the pitch tracking era, which you mentioned dates back to 2008. I think another reason why I wouldn't move him up too aggressively yet is the fact that he did only throw 59 pitches in this start. And I get why the Pirates are going to do this, and I understand that it's going to frustrate some people for fantasy. It frustrated me here on Tuesday. I have Jared Jones in a few leagues. I would love to get the quality start. It didn't happen. And as you mentioned, it was predetermined that he was just going to throw 5 innings coming into this one. And they're doing that to kind of prolong his longevity for longer into the season. So I think that kind of will leave some meat on the bone for fantasy because on a per start basis, he's just not going to throw as many innings as other pitchers. Now, there will be other starts, I think, where he's allowed to go 6, 7. But there's also going to be ones like this where maybe he only throws 4. Maybe he only throws 5. And I think that might limit his upside from a fantasy perspective. So,
yeah, I think that's reasonable. It makes getting to a top 12 finish pretty difficult. I don't think Spencer Strider was a top 12 pitcher in his first season when he only threw 131 innings. But like I said, Jones threw 126 last year. So I do expect him to beat that if he stays healthy. Obviously, this caveat goes without saying, but if he stays healthy, he's a young pitcher throwing 98 miles an hour. So unfortunately, yeah.
Please stay healthy, Jared Jones. He is off to a tremendous start. And yeah, he's obviously looked amazing. Let's talk about my player of the night, Ryan Weathers of your Miami Marlins. He set a career high with 10 strikeouts up against the Giants, 6 innings, 2 runs allowed, 1 walk to 10 strikeouts. He had 19 swinging strikes on 90 pitches. 9 of those came on the changeup, 5 on the sweeper, 3 on the fastball, 2 on the cutter, 43% CSW. He had everything working. Apparently, left this start early due to cramping in his left hand, and obviously it was still an amazing outing here. Change up the pitch mix a little bit. Sweeper was his most used pitch at 34%, followed by the changeup, and then the fastball was his 3rd most used pitch. And entering the start, the sweeper and the changeup have been really, really good for Ryan Weathers. So if his fastball could just be passable at 95, 96 miles per hour from the left-hand side with 2 really awesome secondary pitches, there might actually be something here with Ryan Weathers. He's only 16% rostered. Looks like he's in line for 1 start against the Nationals next week. Chris, are you looking to add Ryan Weathers? I guess probably in deeper leagues first, but what do you think about the start?
Yeah, I think anytime you see someone go out and strike out 10 in a start, you probably need to at least consider adding them. I know we've had a handful of big performances like that, and there were a handful of big pitching performances today. But like, if you're in the kind of league where you were considering adding Jack Leiter, who we'll talk about shortly, I think Ryan Weathers is in that same conversation as a low likelihood, but high upside bet. He's looked, his last start before this was pretty good. The one before that was pretty good. It was mostly just the first start that was, 3 earned runs in 4 innings. But yeah, I think Ryan Weathers has looked solid so far.
He would clearly be behind Edward Cabrera, right? Who we talked about yesterday.
Definitely.
What about Ryan Weathers versus Yariel Rodriguez and Jose Butto, who we spoke about on Sunday's podcast?
I would probably, I think I would go Weathers ahead of both of them, but I think it's probably closer with Butto than Rodriguez, just because I don't think we're going to get a lot of innings out of Rodriguez. We didn't mention this on the last podcast, but he was a reliever almost entirely in his time in Japan. He might not have started a single game there, actually. And he didn't pitch last season in organized baseball because he was trying to get out of his contract. So I would be surprised if we got 100 innings out of Yariel Rodriguez. So that's enough to put Ryan Weathers ahead of him. Now, I might go with Jack Leiter, the Rangers prospect who is getting called up to make his debut on Thursday. I think there's a lot of really interesting things about him. Don't just look at the really ugly minor league ERA with him. But those are the kind of upside pitchers I'd be aiming for.
Last one, would you go with Ben Brown or Ryan Weathers?
I think I'd go with Ryan Weathers. Yeah. I mean, Ben Brown might have a rotation spot with how Kyle Hendricks is pitching right now. Even with Jameson Taillon coming back. I apologize for your NL only labor team, but
don't remind me. Jeez.
But I think I'd probably rather have Weathers than Brown.
All right. Yeah. I think I would agree with most of those. Again, it's more so for deeper leagues. If you play in a shallower 12-team points league format for now, I think I would kind of take a wait and see approach with Weathers, just because I have to imagine there are some other interesting starting pitchers still available in leagues that shallow. Want to give an honorable mention shout out to Mookie Betts, who went 5 for 5 with 2 doubles, 2 RBI, and 2 runs scored. And it's early on in the season, but he was my NL MVP pick, Chris, and so far so good. He's hitting 388. He's got 6 homers, 3 steals, 22 runs, 18 RBI, and 1190 OPS to open the season. And I'm just seeing now, I have this crazy Cubs and D-backs game on.
Yeah.
Was down to the final out. The score was 11-10. Adbert Alzolay in for the save. Ketel Marte, a game-tying home run with 2 outs in the 9th. Clutch.
Most underrated hitter in baseball, right there, Ketel Marte.
Yeah, another one. Just stay healthy. He's whenever he's on the field, he's pretty awesome. Let's quickly promote a few things. Thank you, everyone, for watching us live. Like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. That's youtube.com/fantasybaseball today. And a reminder that you can always find FBT and our 5-minute podcast, FBT and 5, on Spotify. Let's take our first break. When we return, we will talk more about those prospect promotions right after this.
The Scudetto, where the soul of Italy meets the pinnacle of calcio. Catch Serie A on CBS Sports Network and streaming live on Paramount+.
Welcome back in. We got the news of a pair of prospect promotions here on Tuesday. The Rangers are promoting Jack Leiter to make a start on Thursday against the Tigers. 23 years old, 2nd overall pick back in 2021. And it's mostly been a struggle for Jack Leiter in the minors, but he made some tweaks towards the end of last season. He showed up this spring, pitched decently there, and he's off to a nice start this season in the minors. 3 starts at AAA, a 3.77 ERA, a .98 whip, 25 strikeouts for 14 and a third innings. But most importantly, just 3 walks. Control has been probably the biggest issue for Jack Leiter in the minors. He is 34% rostered. Chris, where would you be looking to add Jack Leiter right now?
Yeah, I mean, the path kind of reminds me of Mackenzie Gore. Remember, he was the top pitching prospect in baseball, I think, entering the 2021 season, if I have my timeline correct. By 2022's offseason, I don't think he was even a top 100 prospect on most lists. That's what it feels like with Jack Leiter, and that's not to say he's going to figure out in the same way that Mackenzie Gore has, but last year he went from AAA down to the team's training complex in Arizona to work on his fastball in particular, but also just his delivery and his pitches, and came back and looked better, as you said, over the end of last season. The stuff looked really good in spring, even if the results weren't necessarily great. And then the stuff has been really good and the results have been terrific so far. It's only 3 starts, but I think even in your 12-team leagues, you should be looking to add Jack Leiter if you have a roster spot to play with. Now, if Ryan Weathers and Edward Cabrera are available in your league, specifically Edward Cabrera, like I would prioritize Edward Cabrera ahead of Jack Leiter because he already made the start where he did the thing we're hoping Jack Leiter can do, right?
Yeah.
But if Jack Leiter comes out on Thursday and strikes out 9 in 5 innings or 6 innings, would not be surprised given how he's looked at AAA. I know Eno Saris tweeted that his stuff, I think, was 4th ranked among all AAA starters so far. So that's a pretty good sign. So yeah, I think Jack Leiter is definitely someone worth adding, certainly in all 15-team leagues. If you have nightly waiver runs and even in 12-team leagues, I'd be looking at him.
So we mentioned yesterday that Max Meyer was sent down. Would you be all right dropping Meyer for Leiter or Ryan Weathers?
Yes.
All right. The Dodgers already did promote outfield prospect Andy Pages, and that's spelled Pages, but it's pronounced Pages. So for anyone wondering how to pronounce his name, 23-year-old prospect known mostly for his power. He missed most of last season after undergoing surgery to repair a torn labrum in his right shoulder. He was off to a nice start at AAA, hitting .371 with 5 homers, an 11% walk rate, 18% strikeout rate, 91.3 average exit velocity. I was texting with the Welsh earlier because I remember somebody telling me this spring that Pages looks like a completely different player, like just in phenomenal shape. And it was the Welsh. And I was like, that was you, right? Who told me that? And he said, yeah, he looks phenomenal. His best shape of his life type thing. He went 1 for 4 with a run scored, 2 strikeouts in his debut here on Tuesday, 17% rostered. Where, if anywhere, Chris, would you be looking to add Andy Pages of the Dodgers?
So the problem is he's one of these guys who will probably hit, 25 homers, 25 to 30 homers at his peak, but might have to sacrifice some batting average to do that. Although the quality of contact this year at AAA and the gains he's made there could maybe give him a little more room to hit for average without sacrificing power. But he's not going to run much. I think he's been more of like an 8 steal guy in his minor league career. So it's a tough needle to thread, but look, the Dodgers love him. He got a lot of hype from people around the team this spring. The fact that he's hitting the ball as well as he is right now, coming off of labrum surgery last year, I think is a really interesting sign. I think he only played like 34 games last year, got hurt in his first game at AAA, unfortunately last season. So yeah, I think certainly all 15-team leagues, any NL only league, Andy Pages needs to be added. But again, if you have a roster spot to play with, I don't mind being aggressive on these top 100 prospect call-ups who, may not work out. I think the likeliest outcome perhaps is that Pages doesn't work out, but I don't mind being aggressive just in case it works out, because you probably have someone boring who isn't going to be added immediately on your roster if you need to drop someone.
Yeah, I think in 5 outfielder leagues for sure, if you have an empty roster spot, obviously 15 teamers, 12-team, 5 outfield leagues, I think he's kind of fringy in that format. Yeah. But yeah, let's see how he finishes out the rest of the week. I know most people's waivers run over the weekend, but of course, if you have a roster spot to play with, I think we would prefer to take the shot on Jack Leiter before Andy Pages.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for power, he is someone who might be able to provide that. Let's continue on with the news and notes. Ozzie Albies was placed in the IL with a fractured toe on his right foot. He suffered the injury on a hit-by-pitch Monday, and Albies won't require surgery and could be sidelined 2 to 3 weeks. Luis Guillorme started at second base on Tuesday, and Michael Harris was moved up to second in the Braves lineup. So if there is a silver lining for anybody, it would be Michael Harris fantasy managers right now, because obviously he moves up. Looking at some replacements, Chris, for Ozzie Albies. In a head-to-head points league, each of Jordan Westburg, Jorge Polanco, and Jonathan India are all under 75% rostered. I think it's very clearly has to be Westburg.
Yes.
Just playing out of his mind right now. So we're in agreement there. In a Roto or Categories league, There's Jose Caballero. Cedar Rafaela, I don't know.
He's just been so bad. Yeah.
Got off to a great start. Yeah, I would much rather prefer Caballero.
Mhm.
And then in deeper leagues, it's ugly at second.
Yeah.
Jared Triolo, Kevin Biggio, Davis Schneider, Ahmed Rosario. Anybody stand out?
I'm trying to, let me see. I
was looking at under 40% rostered on CBS, and
yeah. I wrote about waiver wire targets, and I usually do a deep league targets. Let me see who I said. Luis Garcia, 7 doubles in his first 13 games. Really, really good quality of contact. He was only 7% rostered as of this weekend, so that's one to consider. I'd probably prioritize him over Triolo and Biggio and Schneider and Rosario.
Christian Yelich was officially placed in the IL with a lower back strain, and the Brewers started Sal Frelick, Blake Perkins, and Jackson Chourio in the outfield on Tuesday. If you're looking for outfield replacements, Will Benson, Lars Nootbaar, Sal Frelick, Mitch Haniger, Jose Siri are all under 60% rostered. Chris, you have a favorite of that group?
Probably. If I don't need steals, I think I'd probably go Haniger. I think he's the best hitter of that group. So yeah.
I think in a points league, I'd probably go with Nootbaar. In a categories league, again, if you need steals, I'd probably go with Benson or Siri. If you're just looking for a little bit of pop, I think I would agree on Mitch Haniger. In deeper leagues, Jesse Winker, Jonathan Clase, and Ryan O'Hearn, they're all under 20% rostered on CBS. Jesse Winker, again, I'm pretty skeptical. I don't know that I'm completely buying it, but he had another good game here on Tuesday, 2 for 3 with his second home run. It came off of a lefty too, so.
The quality of contact has just really not been good so far. He did have 2 hard hit balls today, so maybe that's starting to turn around. I think he had like 100-mile-per-hour double on Sunday or Monday as well. So maybe he's starting to figure it out a little bit and turning it around. So I don't know. In deeper leagues, Winker's fine. Yeah.
Rafael Devers was removed due to left knee discomfort. He also missed time with a shoulder injury over this past weekend. Garrett Cole threw from 75 feet and came out of it all right. We'll see how his arm responds. Both Jordan Romano and Eric Swanson were activated on Tuesday. Romano thrown right back into the fire. He had a 2-run lead in the 9th inning. He allowed 1 run, but did pick up his first save. Velocity looked fine, so I think we're all good there with Jordan Romano.
Can we go back?
Sure.
To an outfielder that we did not mention?
Yep. Who you got?
I know we're annoyed by it because he's blocking guys that we're more excited about, but Ryan O'Hearn just keeps hitting.
I mentioned
and he you did mention him? Okay. Okay. Yeah, there he is. He's only 16% rostered. Hit another home run today, I believe. Yeah. It's been like a year straight of Ryan O'Hearn frustratingly hitting well for our purposes, because we want him to get out of there, even though he's been good, which is maybe says something about our priorities and our unwillingness to accept when veterans are actually productive. But that's a discussion for a different time.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. Just that we want to see Heston Kjerstad and Kobe Mayo, but
they could be anything.
They could be Ryan O'Hearn.
Yeah.
I had someone in the mentions today asking, what if Ryan O'Hearn is just mid-career breakout Max Muncy? And
it's unlikely.
I didn't have a retort. I was like,
yeah.
Oh, why not? He might be. I don't know. I guess we have to see like a larger sample from Ryan O'Hearn. Josh Lowe is slated to begin a rehab assignment at AAA on Thursday. Rays manager Kevin Cash said that Lowe might not need too much time at AAA given how well he's been feeling. Tyler Wells was placed on the IL with right elbow inflammation. And if we're looking for a replacement in the Orioles pitching staff, I think John Means could be ready soon. If not, I would say pay attention to pitching prospect Cade Povich, who's off to a nice start at AAA. Seiya Suzuki is expected to miss roughly 4 weeks due to a moderate strain in his right oblique. Yohan Duran threw a 25-pitch bullpen session Tuesday and expects to face live batters on Friday. Tyler O'Neill cleared concussion protocol, but will sit Tuesday and Wednesday before potentially rejoining the Red Sox on Thursday. Salvador Perez has missed 2 straight with a left groin strain. Gabriel Moreno was scratched Tuesday due to a right thumb contusion. Garrett Whitlock was removed from his start due to left oblique tightness. Jake Cronenworth out of the lineup with calf tightness. Brett Beatty was removed due to left hamstring tightness. Lots of tightness. DJ LeMahieu is expected to begin a rehab assignment this weekend. He started the season on the IL with a non-displaced fracture in his right foot. And White Sox manager Pedro Grifol said Eloy Jimenez and Gavin Sheets could make starts in the outfield. Not sure that's going to help Eloy Jimenez stay on the field. Let's talk about those Orioles. I just wanted to run through their lineup. Had a huge game here on Tuesday. 11 runs against the Twins, 15 hits, including 3 homers. Gunnar Henderson off to a tremendous start. He is batting .275, 5 homers, 12 runs, 14 RBI, 4 steals. Chris, Gunnar Henderson's 150-game pace right now. 53 homers and 35 steals. So
I think I'd take the under.
I would too, but
on both of those, but he's real good.
Based on the quality of contact, if he's going to run this much, he might just play himself into a first-round player.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing about him last year is like he didn't run all that much, but he was athletic enough that if you were looking for a reason he could take a step forward, I think, 1, hitting like he did in the second half overall, and then 2, running a little more. He's 84th percentile in sprint speed. He only had 10 steals last season, but he's already up to 4. And it's a pretty positive sign.
Ryan O'Hearn, we already spoke about him, but he went 2 for 5 with his 4th home run. He had 4 hard hits in this game, all of which were over 100-mile-per-hour exit velocity, 5 walks to 5 strikeouts, just crushing the ball early on, 93.3 average exit velocity. He's not going to play against lefties, and that's going to be a problem next week because there's 6 games on the schedule, and it looks like there are 3 lefties as of now. Things could change, but I think Ryan O'Hearn, especially if you play in a daily lineup league, great player to have in that format. Just get him in whenever he's playing. Jordan Westberg, another big game. 2 for 4 with his 4th home run, 2 RBI. He had 3 hard hits in this game. The home run went to left field. Don't tell Scott White that it went past the cutout. It was a 404-foot homer in this one. And Jordan Westberg is off to a tremendous start. He's 71% rostered. Chris, I'll give you some names that have a higher roster rate at second base. Jorge Polanco. Who would you rather have?
Westberg.
Jeff McNeil.
Westberg.
This one's fun. Nolan Gorman.
I will stick with Gorman, but yes, that is very fun of you to ask me that question and not have to answer it yourself.
I would take Gorman as well. We both like Gorman coming into the year. Bryce Terang.
I think it would have to be Westberg. Yeah.
I think it's format dependent, maybe.
I think it. So the thing with Terang is he had 7 steals in the first 4 games of the season. And I think he has 1 since then. He has 2 since then. 2 in his last 10 games, which is still a 32 steal pace. I think he will be a valuable source of steals. I just don't know if it's necessarily he's going to be the giant outlier he looked like early on. It might be another Ramon Laureano from a few years ago, if you remember that, when he had 8 steals in the first 5 games or whatever.
Third basemen who are more rostered than Jordan Westberg. Just above him, Matt Chapman.
Westberg.
Michael Garcia.
There were an awful lot of victory laps after the first 4 or 5 games for Michael Garcia, and it's been pretty quiet since then. Jordan Westberg.
That one is close because I like the
counting stat potential for Michael Garcia is better because of the lineup. He's going to steal more bases probably.
I think the Orioles lineup is better, but Garcia leads off.
Yeah, no, that's the big difference. Is Westberg's hitting 7th most days?
Yeah, 6th or 7th, I think.
Yeah.
So that one's close. I think I would stick with Michael Garcia though. That roster rate just needs to climb. I think Westberg has to get up over 80%, and so we get.
I think Westberg. I think Westberg versus Christopher Morel is a really interesting one. Very similar players. Morel probably in the better park, so maybe that's a reason to take him. But I think in terms of talent, it's very close.
Who would you take?
I'll leave Morel ahead for now.
I might go with Westberg just because he doesn't strike out as much, so he's not going to be as streaky, and he hits the ball as hard, if not harder, than Morel, at least so far this season. Yeah, that one's really close. I think I'd go with Westberg. One player in the starting lineup who did not pick up a hit, the only one, was Jackson Holliday. He went 0 for 3 with a walk and 2 strikeouts. It's a very small sample size early on here, Chris, but I'm sure there are concerned fantasy managers out there. Jackson Holliday is 1 for 22 so far with 12 strikeouts. That is a 52% strikeout rate. He entered Tuesday with a 78% ground ball rate, 84.4 average exit velocity. I think the good news for Holliday is that because this lineup is so good, there's no pressure on him to perform. As long as he's sufficient defensively, the leash is going to be pretty long for Jackson Holliday.
I mean, it's, I don't know. It's not like Tony Kemp was giving them much more than that anyway. So yeah, he looks overwhelmed right now. Like, he has a 50% whiff rate on fastballs. That is totally untenable. He is hitting everything into the ground. He's striking out way too much. Like, if a player were not ready for the majors, this is what it would look like. But it's 22 at bats. So I'm not going to panic about him. I'm certainly not dropping him. Maybe you sit him if this continues for the rest of this week, but I'm not going to overreact.
The only, I guess, argument you can make against Jackson Holliday, and I don't think this is going to happen, but if the Orioles really want to field their best team, they could go with Westberg at second base, and they could call up Kobe Mayo to play third and see what happens. But again, you're going from one prospect to another then, and I just think that's going to happen.
I have to imagine they're going to give him more than, what has it been, 7 games?
Yeah, for sure. Just wanted to acknowledge the slow start there.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some mid-career breakout pitchers, ? Maybe. These guys all pitched pretty well here on Tuesday. Ranger Suarez, my bad. We're just getting to him now, 30 minutes into the podcast. Yes, he was amazing. Second complete game of the season, not by Ranger Suarez. But
okay, that's what I was wondering if there was one before that. That's what I was about to look up, actually.
It was Ronel Blanco's no-hitter.
Oh, that's right. He did throw a no-hitter. You're right. You're right.
So Suarez up against the Rockies, a 7-hit shutout, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. He had 18 swinging strikes on 112 pitches. 7 of those on the curve, 5 on the changeup, 4 on the fastball, 1 on each of the sinker and the cutter. He only allowed 5 hard hits in this game. It's a pretty standard pitch mix. I noticed the velocity for Suarez is down on the sinker this year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's on purpose. Maybe he's able to command his pitches better, or specifically the sinker when he's, takes a little bit off of it. What I've noticed mostly, Chris, is that he's keeping the walks down and the ground ball rate is back up to where it was a couple of years ago, 62% ground ball rate. If he does those two things together, we might have a mid-career breakout-ish type season here from Ranger Suarez.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem with the mid-career breakout is it kind of already happened for him, right? 2021, he was incredible. 2022, he was pretty good. So yeah, I buy that he could get back to where he was in 2022 when he was a 3.65 ERA pitcher. You'd hope for a better whip if the control improvements stick, but the problem is, you apologize for not getting to him until 30 minutes into the episode, but he's 96% rostered, something on 85% rostered on CBS Sports League. So it's not really actionable, right? Like, I could say sell high on Ranger Suarez. Is anybody buying Ranger Suarez? Is anybody going to give you a significant piece for him? That's part of the problem. I think it's fine to be optimistic about him. I think it's fine to believe that he can be a useful pitcher moving forward, but I'm not buying him being an ace or anything like it, or even really like a top 50 starting pitcher, but he could be in the 60 range.
Yeah, I think a mid-career breakout for Ranger Suarez would mean he elevates himself to that Jose Barrios, Merrill Kelly type production, right? Where that's like a top 40 starting pitcher.
Sure.
Doesn't have massive upside, but just a really, really solid starter week in and week out. But I guess, yeah, if we're talking actionable, if you want to try and sell high on Ranger Suarez for Jesus Luzardo or Blake Snell, is
absolutely. Yeah, those would be easy calls. Yeah.
Okay. 3 other names here who might be mid-career breakout pitchers. Yusei Kikuchi has turned in back-to-back quality starts. This one up against the Yankees. 6 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts to just 1 walk. Aaron Savali has a quality start in 3 of 4 outings. This time against the Angels, it was 6 innings, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts to 0 walks. He had 16 swinging strikes on 101 pitches. And Ronaldo Lopez is 3 for 3 on quality starts. First 2 matchups, admittedly, much easier. At the Houston Astros.
Yeah.
That's a tough place to pitch. 6 shutout innings, 7 strikeouts, 14 swinging strikes on 94 pitches. The velocity's down this year. He's throwing 95, 96 miles per hour, but the secondary pitches have looked pretty good for Reynaldo Lopez. He's up to 80% rostered. What do you think, Chris, about the mid-career breakout chances of Kikuchi, Savali, and Reynaldo Lopez?
I would rank them Kikuchi, Savali, and Reynaldo Lopez in terms of how interested I am in them. Lopez, we saw stretches like this from him as a starter in the past, and he never really sustained them. I still suspect that that's the likeliest outcome, that especially in roto leagues, I think the ratios could get pretty ugly at times, but in head-to-head points leagues, I think you just leave him in your lineup as a SPARP and don't worry about it. So I think he does clear that lower bar. Kikuchi, I mean, we're going on close to a year of him pitching not at an ace level, but at a really high level. You're talking like a 3.6 ERA, 193 strikeouts over his last 33 starts, a 1.25 whip. Like that's what we were hoping for from Kodai Senga, right? Like that's potentially a top 25, top 30 starting pitcher. I get that there's been a lot of ups and downs in Kikuchi's career, and if we're being honest, mostly downs. But I don't see why he shouldn't be a top 50 starting pitcher in the rankings moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Kikuchi has been great. Really, all 4 of these pitchers have been really good so far to start the season. Again, that's Suarez, Kikuchi, Savali, and Reynaldo Lopez. Let's take our final break. When we return, it's time to fire up the worryometer for some mid-round hitters. We'll do that right after this.
And they're starting to get in the groove.
So impressive.
Block your schedules. Aces are coming to CBS Sports Network.
It's a worryometer Wednesday, and today we're talking about mid-round hitters. I've got 6 names that I think we're going, I don't know, between picks 60 and like 125. So let's start things off with Nick Castellanos, someone I know you drafted a lot of, Chris. 169 batting average. He's got 0 homers, a 408 OPS. To me, the drop-off, or what would make me worried about Nick Castellanos, is the plate discipline. And so far, that's really not a concern. It feels like he's hitting a lot of lazy fly balls right now. So where are you at 1 to 10, the worryometer on Nick Castellanos?
Yeah, like the quality of contact isn't good for Nick Castellanos, but it's not terrible so far. He's hit 1 ball 109 miles an hour. His average exit velocity is 89. His hard hit rate's 42%, right around where it was last season. So I don't think there's too much reason to be worried about Nick Castellanos. I think he's just a streaky hitter who's off to a pretty bad start. And just spoiler alert, my worryometer is going to be pretty low on all of these guys. So how are we calibrating this? 0, no concern at all. 10 is drop him.
Sure.
A 4, 3.
Yeah, I guess wanted to mention some of these names because these are the ones we're getting lots of questions about it. I think mostly people just want to hear us acknowledge the name,
yes,
and know that they are struggling. And I guess that's the main point of this exercise today. We can talk about Paul Goldschmidt, who's batting 190. Believe he hit a home run on opening day. Has not done much of anything since. He's got a 530 OPS. Strikeout rate is a little bit elevated for a hitter who's pushing 40 years old now. The quality of contact is down. Worryometer level on Paul Goldschmidt.
I want to just check one thing on the pushing 40. All right. He's only like 9 months older than me. Let's pump the brakes on pushing 40. All right.
I thought he was older than that.
I'm not. He's only 36. He doesn't turn 37 until September.
He's closer to 40 than 30.
He is closer to 40 than 30. That is true. But if I was going to be worried about any of these guys, it would definitely be the guy who's pushing 40. The strikeout rate being up, the fact that he's not hitting the ball hard, like those are all really concerning signs. He hasn't hit a ball harder than 105 miles per hour so far this season. It's very early, but the quality of contact metrics are all pretty poor relative to where they've been. Heck, relative to anybody, really. So, yeah, I do think Goldschmidt is more concerning than probably anyone else here, just because of his age. Yeah, I'll say a 5.51.
Yes, that is Paul Goldschmidt, who's actually pushing 37, not 40. I was off by a couple of years. Gleyber Torres is batting 206 with 0 homers. He does have 3 steals. It's a 556 OPS. Plate discipline looks good. Quality of contact is all right. What I've noticed is he has a 17% infield fly ball rate. Those are automatic outs, so I think that's contributed to some of it. I think he had an injury maybe late in spring or early in the season. I feel like he got hit by a pitch on his hand.
Yeah, I want to say it was a hand injury. That sounds right.
So that might be contributing here. Worryometer on Gleyber Torres.
2.
Yeah.
I like he's striking out a little bit more, but it's 21%. It's hardly concerning. He does have a batted ball up at 109 miles an hour. It's his max exit velo. Average exit velo is pretty good. I think he's just not locked in yet, but I'm not too concerned about Gleyber Torres.
Jordan Walker is batting 184 with 0 homers, 0 steals, and a 556 OPS. He is hitting the ball really hard, 92.1 average exit velocity, but a similar problem to last year, 56% ground ball rate. Worryometer on Jordan Walker.
Yeah, he's worm burners. Is that a thing that people say?
I think so.
He's burning some worms right now because, yeah, like you said, he's hitting the ball really hard. 92.1 mile per hour average exit velocity. It's just too often on the ground or, frankly, in the harmless range of fly balls, too high or too low. So I don't know. I think he's probably going to figure it out. The fact that he's hitting the ball hard does seem like a pretty good sign, but I was talking to a friend earlier who was asking me about him, and he dropped Jordan Walker for, gosh, I can't find it, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. And that's exactly what I'm doing. He dropped Jordan Walker for Jackson Merrill. Like, I have Jordan Walker ranked higher than Jackson Merrill, but I think that's a reasonable move to make because you're talking about 2 extremely young, extremely talented players. I would say Jordan Walker probably has the higher ceiling, but Jackson Merrill's doing it right now. And I think that's a reasonable move to make. I wouldn't drop Jordan Walker for, I don't know, Ryan O'Hearn or whatever, like veteran guy who's off to a good start. Fill in whichever version of that you want, probably a higher end version than Ryan O'Hearn to make the point. But
Mitch Haniger.
I wouldn't drop him for Mitch Haniger. I wouldn't drop him for South Frelick. I wouldn't drop him, probably not for Lars Nootbaar. But I think that one's interesting because Lars Nootbaar was probably a little better than him on a per game basis last season.
I might do that in a points league.
Yeah, I think in a points league that's okay. But
what about Colton Cowser?
Yes.
Not that Cowser's available anymore, but
yeah, I think I'd probably have to do that. Yeah,
I think so too. Xander Bogaerts is batting 211 with 1 homer, 1 steal, and a 562 OPS. Quality of contact is bad so far. 84 mile per hour average exit velocity. He also has some kind of pop-up issues right now. 14% infield fly ball rate. Worryometer on Xander Bogaerts.
Again, because he's 31, it's going to be a little higher. I think I could trend towards like a 4.63 on Xander Bogaerts, but he's still making a ton of contact. He's never been a guy who had outrageously good quality of contact. He's consistently outperformed his expected metrics. So like his expected WOBA is actually 327. That's the best it's been since 2021. And Xander Bogaerts, like I said, is a guy who pretty consistently outperforms his expected metrics. So I'm going to revise that downward and say 3.42 on the Worryometer.
Spencer Torkelson, 209 batting average, 0 homers, and a 577 OPS. He is not hitting the ball very hard.
He's not doing anything well right now.
No.
He's making contact.
The plate discipline is not terrible, but it looks like it's just a lot of lazy fly balls right now. Where are you at, Worryometer, on Torkelson?
Yeah, 1 in 5 of his batted balls so far has been a pop-up, which is There are different ways to measure that. Fangraphs uses infield fly ball rate, which uses fly balls as the denominator. Baseball Savant uses all batted balls, and he's at 20%. So that's really bad.
Wow.
I think he's probably just not locked in, and I think he's probably got to find his swing. The fact that he's making a lot more contact than normal, but it's a lot of weak contact suggests that there's probably some kind of mechanical thing that Spencer Torkelson needs to fix. But I think it's fine to be worried about him because he's by no means a sure thing. We saw an entire half season where he was pretty awful last year, despite some good underlying metrics. So I'll drop Spencer Torkelson a 5 on the worryometer. I think it's fine to be a little worried about him. Yes.
And I'm building in excuses here for Torkelson, but I think for Tigers hitters early on in the season where it's cold and they're playing a bunch of other AL Central teams where it's also outdoors and it's cold. So I think you can kind of, add that in as another reason why some of these guys might get off to slow starts in that division. Chris, who would you be looking to buy low mostly on of the hitters we just spoke about? Castellanos, Goldschmidt, Glaber, Jordan Walker, Bogarts, and Torkelson.
Probably Glaber, because the quality of contact was really good last season. He's become a pretty... I do think once he figures that out, he'll be a very valuable player. Also, just, I don't know, everybody seems to want to give up on Nick Castellanos, and I don't. So I think you could probably get Castellanos pretty cheap. I would imagine there are some people who might even be considering dropping him. And I would not do that, as we discussed. So I think Castellanos is a pretty good buy low target.
Let's get back into Tuesday's action and waiver wire pitchers outside of Ryan Weathers, who we already spoke about. John Gray turned in his first quality start of the season. He was at the Tigers, 6 innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts with 16 swinging strikes. Casey Mize turned in his first quality start. He was opposing John Gray facing the Rangers, 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts to 0 walks, only 7 swinging strikes. Still allowed some hard contact in this outing. Jose Quintana was solid up against the Pirates, 5 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts in that one. And Lance Lynn at the Oakland A's, 7 innings, 2 runs. 1 of those was earned, only 1 strikeout to 1 walk. Not the most exciting group ever, Chris, but do you have any enthusiasm for any of these pitchers? John Gray, Casey Mize, Quintana, Lance Lynn.
I think over the past week, we've probably mentioned about 24 pitchers who I would be more excited to add than any of these guys. Would be more excited to add Edward Cabrera, Ryan Weathers. I'm sure there are a bunch of other names besides ones that pitch on the Marlins, but they're not coming to mind right now.
Jose Butto.
Jose Butto, sure.
Jack Leiter.
Jack Leiter, absolutely. John Gray is going to be useful for stretches, and then he's going to have stretches where he's just not very good. You're not going to really be able to predict when those happen. It's just the John Gray experience. And then Casey Mize, I was optimistic about him coming in because the spring numbers were pretty good, but he wasn't really getting a ton of strikeouts in the spring, even though he was pitching well and facing a lower level of competition. And now he gets to the majors, and I just don't know where the whiffs are supposed to come from. His slider, his splitter, his curveball, none of those have been good swing and miss pitches really at any point in his major league career. And that makes it extremely difficult to buy into Casey Mize despite clear talent. It's just, I don't know, the feel for pitching maybe isn't there yet. And I can see a stretch in Casey Mize's career where he looks like a really good pitcher. I just don't buy it right now.
If you want to beat the waiver wire for 2-star pitchers, it looks like Quintana is home against the Cardinals and at the Giants next week, and Lance Lynn is home against the D-backs and at the Mets, though
only in points leagues for me.
I just don't really trust the talent of either of those pitchers. So do with that what you will. If you're someone like my dad who will pick up any 2-star pitcher ever and just play them, then those are some names for you. 2 names in deeper leagues. We already spoke about Ryan Weathers. Jose Soriano, effectively wild at the Tampa Bay Rays, 5 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, but 5 walks, 6 strikeouts, and he completely changed his pitch mix from the first start that he made. He ditched that splitter that he used 13% in his first start. He made the curveball his most used pitch. That looks like a nasty pitch. And he averages 99.4 miles per hour on his fastball. I think there could be something here. I would be more willing to pick up Jose Soriano over any of the names we just mentioned, just because there's a chance.
Yes, just because he's less proven mediocre than the other guys on the discussion that we were having before. I think I'd be fine with him. I probably wouldn't drop Casey Mize for him. But I think given the lack of proven mediocrity there, it's fine. The thing with Soriano is I can buy him getting some strikeouts. The command looks pretty poor and surprising amount of hard contact so far in his major league career for how good the stuff looks based on the eye test. So I can't say even at 8% that he's too low rostered. He's not someone I'm actively looking to add.
He is RP only, so if you play in, I guess, a deeper points league, he's just a name to know. That is Jose Soriano.
Is he a 2-star pitcher next week? Because that could change that. Then I would say maybe in a lot of points leagues he's worth adding, but
I think he's a
outside of that
pitcher this week.
Okay,
and it looks like he's facing the Twins next week.
Okay, well,
and they strike out a ton.
They strike out a lot. They really like striking out. That's like their favorite thing over there in Minneapolis. So
and half of their lineup is already hurt. So
yeah, although they did send Matt Wallner down, so that's like 3 strikeouts off the top that you can't count on. That was mean. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what did Matt Wallner ever do to you? Come on, man.
He'll strike out like 75% of the time.
Ah, you're right. Let's get into some of the leftovers. Buy low or heck no. Tanner Bibee edition. It's been a weird start to the season for Tanner Bibee. He was at the Red Sox. 5 innings, 1 run allowed, only 3 strikeouts, 10 swinging strikes on 92 pitches. He limited the hard contact in this one. 2 walks over 5 innings. All right, it's fine. I would have liked it to be a little bit better, I guess. He changed up the pitch mix a little bit in this one. He threw his changeup and his curveball a little bit more. I think more importantly, the fastball velocity was up for Tanner Bibee. He averaged 95.1 on that pitch today, and entering the start, I believe it was 93.6. So he got that up closer to where it was last year. Chris, would you be looking to buy low on Tanner Bibee right now?
I think Tanner Bibee's a very solid buy low candidate. He got good swing and miss results on all 3 of his pitches that weren't the fastball prior to this start. Didn't get any with the slider today, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, it was the slider that he didn't get any whiffs with, but he got some with the changeup and curveball, so those still look pretty good. Fastball velocity being up, that's one of those things, like you mentioned with Spencer Torkelson. I'm going to guess he's pitched in some pretty rough weather so far, so Tanner Bibee's velocity being up to 95.1, actually slightly up from last season. I think that's a pretty good sign, yeah.
All right. Would you trade Ranger Suarez to get Tanner Bibee?
Yes. Yes, I would. I did move Bibee down in my rankings. Below Jared Jones, below Sonny Gray. Him versus Chris Bassett. That's an interesting one that I have to give a little more thought to. I think I'd go back. I think I'd go Bibee still, but
yeah,
it's the more upside.
I think the strikeout upside is higher for Tanner Bibee. So I think I would still take him over Bassett as well. Some other pitching leftovers. Grayson Rodriguez has turned in a quality start in 3 of 4 starts, and this one was home against the Twins. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts in that one. Logan Gilbert, another quality start up against the Reds. 6 2/3 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, just 1 walk. Jordan Hicks battled his way through 5 innings at the Marlins. 5 innings, 2 runs, 3 walks to 5 strikeouts. He entered this start with 3 walks in his first 3 starts, and then he had 3 walks alone in this start. So he's always struggled with control. He obviously wasn't going to keep up what we saw early on in the season, but I thought it was encouraging that he still kind of made it through this one unscathed. Dylan Cease was also wild, but turned in a quality start at the Brewers. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts to 5 walks. And Hunter Brown bounced back from that horrific outing last time with a quality start against the Braves. So it is impressive to do that against them. 6 innings, 2 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. I just don't really get the Hunter Brown thing, Chris. He gives up a lot of hard contact. He doesn't get many whiffs. He walks too many batters. So yeah, he's still young enough where he could turn it around. I don't want to dismiss that possibility, but anything you'd like to add on Brown, Cease, Hicks, Gilbert, and G-Rod?
Yeah, I mean, if you were thinking about dropping Hunter Brown and you didn't do it after the last start, I guess you wouldn't do it after this one. But I agree, there's not a ton to be optimistic about. He's going to be in the 60 to 70 range at starting pitcher at best after I update things, probably below 70. So I don't have any problems dropping him if you want to. Grayson Rodriguez, one interesting thing I noted that has not shown up on Baseball Savant, but I did notice Baseball Prospectus's pitch grading system. They have him throwing a slider and a cutter, whereas I think Baseball Savant just has a cutter for him, and the cutter velocity has been down like 1.5 to 2 miles per hour. I think that's because there's two separate pitches there. There's a slower slider with a little more horizontal break, then there's the harder cutter. Slider rates out pretty well, according to Baseball Prospectus's Pitch Pro, I think is what they call their pitch grading system. So that's something to keep an eye on, because the cutter has been pretty bad for Grayson Rodriguez. I think he's really good. I don't know if he's going to become the ace we hoped he would be as a prospect, but I think Grayson Rodriguez, I feel very confident that he's very, very good. And so it's just, is he more like a Logan Gilbert, or can he find that next level? And the shape is going to be different than Logan Gilbert. He's not going to have quite as good command as Logan Gilbert, but like, look, I've got Logan Gilbert on like 3 of my teams. I think he was underrated this spring. I think he's a very good pitcher who just we tend to do this thing where when we have high hopes for a pitcher and then they just become good, we kind of underrate them a little bit. Jose Barrios had that a little bit in his career at times. So I don't want to underrate Grayson Rodriguez, and I certainly don't want to write off the potential for him to make an ace turn. He hasn't given us a ton of reasons to think that that's happening yet. And then Dylan Cease, I just want to say I'm glad I didn't watch this start, because this is like a classic Dylan Cease start where if I had watched it, I would have moved him down in my rankings, because I hate watching him when he's like this. I also hate his changeup. Have you seen this dumb pitch that he's throwing?
No.
He's throwing like a 65 mile an hour changeup.
Oh, it's Zach Greinke style.
It's basically an ephus, but like he's like noticeably slowing his arm movement down, and I hate it. I keep seeing GIFs of it, and it's like, wow, look at this pitch, and it's terrible. That's all I want to say. He only threw it one time today, so that's my old man rant.
Fair enough.
It's not a real pitch.
Some hitting leftovers. Bryce Harper with some signs of life, 2 for 4 with his 4th home run. He added 3 RBI. He's batting .215 early on in the season. Still hitting the ball really hard. I think he's going to be fine. Mike Trout, 1 for 5 with a walk and his 3rd stolen base. .284 batting average, 7 homers, 3 steals. I'm saying there might be a chance here if he stays healthy. 40-20, Mike Trout. It's not crazy. Steven Kwan is off to an incredible start, 3 for 5 with a walk and 2 runs scored. He is batting .372 early on in the season, 18 runs scored in 17 games played. Tristan Casas is heating up, 2 for 4 with his 5th home run. He's homered in 3 of his past 4 games. Signs of life from Nico Hoerner and Ian Happ. Hoerner went 4 for 5 with a double, a triple, 2 runs. He actually led off in this game. It was against a lefty. Ian Happ, 3 for 4 with his first home run of the season, a grand slam in that crazy game between the D-backs and the Cubs. And speaking of which, Lourdes Gurriel continues his awesome start. He hit his 5th home run of the season. I think he's up to 20 RBI already. So, it's been a great start for him. Anything you'd like to add here, Chris? A couple names: Harper, Trout, Kwan, Casas, Hoerner, Gurriel.
Trout, it's not just that he's running. He's also cut the strikeout rate down to, I think, below 20%. At least it was coming into this start. It was down to like 18% entering today. So, I mean, we mentioned it in the offseason that there could still be room for Mike Trout to be a truly elite fantasy player. And what we're seeing right now is Mike Trout looking like a truly elite fantasy player. So fingers crossed. And then there was a really good piece in the Athletic today by, Saris about Steven Kwan, Jackson Merrill, and CJ Abrams, 3 contact-oriented hitters who are trying to tap into more power. Steven Kwan, the Guardians talked about this being kind of an organizational thing, but specifically with Steven Kwan trying to hit the ball with a little more authority. He does have 2 home runs so far, which is pretty good for a guy who only has 6 as his career high. He has a 16% hard hit rate and an 85 mile per hour average exit velocity. He is not pulling the ball more often. He's hitting a ton more line drives and a lot fewer ground balls. So maybe that's just, he can, kind of finagle his way into some power that way. But it was an interesting read, I guess, would be the way I would phrase it, even if I don't know if I necessarily buy that there is a power breakout coming for Stephen Kwan.
Bullpen updates for the Tigers. Andrew Chafin pitched a clean 8th with the game tied. The Tigers took a 2-run lead. Chafin stayed out there to face Evan Carter, who he struck out. And then Jason Foley got the final 2 outs for his 5th save of the season. For the Marlins, not the Twins, Tanner Scott got the 9th with a 3-run lead. He walked 2, but picked up his 2nd save. For the Angels, Carlos Estevez got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He gave up 2 runs on 3 hits, took his first blown save. The Rays would eventually win that game in a wild game.
And yet, arrow pointing up for Carlos Estevez.
Yep, because
Robert Stevenson is not coming back anytime soon, it sounds like.
That is correct. For the Mets, with Edwin Diaz unavailable, it was Drew Smith who got the 9th. He struck out 2 for his first save. For the Red Sox, Kenley Jansen got the 9th with a 1-run lead. He gave up a run on 3 hits, and it honestly should have been more, but Willie Abreu made an awesome catch in right field, so shout out to him. For the Guardians, Emmanuel Clase got the 10th with a 1-run lead. He gave up a hit. He allowed the ghost runner to score. He took his 2nd blown save, but wound up with the win. For the Braves, Raisel Iglesias entered with 2 outs in the 9th, a 4-run lead. Runners on 1st and 2nd. He got Victor Caratini to ground out for his 4th save. For the Cardinals, Ryan Helsley struck out 1 for his league-leading 7th save of the season. The Mariners continues to be messy for Andres Munoz. I get why they want to use him in big spots and the highest leverage situations, but I think it's going to limit his save output this season. He entered with 2 outs in the 7th, a runner on 1st, a 2-run lead. He gave up a walk and a single, but Julio Rodriguez saved the day by throwing Ellie De La Cruz out at 3rd base. Then Munoz also pitched a clean 8th inning. Ryan Stanek started the 9th. He walked 2. He got 2 outs. And then it was lefty Taylor Saucedo who got the final out for his 1st save. Do we just assume this is going to continue happening, Chris? It's just whatever the biggest moment of the game is, that's when Munoz is pitching.
Yeah, I think that's probably okay to assume. And sometimes that'll be the biggest moment will be in the 7th inning, and that'll be frustrating. But the highest leverage situation is often the 9th inning. And so I wouldn't be too concerned that he's not going to lead the Mariners in saves. It's just that maybe he gets 65% of the saves instead of 75% of the saves. That's a reasonable concern. Maybe it's 25 saves instead of 30 saves. That's fine. I think that's a reasonable concern, but nothing actionable there. I do want to point out Ryan Helsley, early on, his velocity was down 3 miles per hour. It's not quite where it was last season, but he averaged 98.9 miles per hour with his fastball. He's been right around 99 the last couple of outings. So I think we're no concerns there. Just stay healthy.
We might have concerns in the Brewers rotation, in the Brewers bullpen, excuse me. Abner Uribe entered in the 4th inning, down 4-1. He gave up 3 hits and a walk, but he didn't allow a run. Yoel Payamps pitched the 9th with the Brewers down 6-2 at the time. Both pitchers' ERAs are pushing 6. Uribe's whip is much higher. It's 1.96. My guess is if there was a save opportunity tomorrow, it probably goes to Payamps, I guess.
I would think that's more likely than Uribe. Uribe's just been his K- walk rate is 8% right now. That's really, really bad. The thing about him was we knew the command was going to be bad, but the strikeouts have not been there so far. And as long as that's the case, it's going to be really hard for him to be a really good pitcher. Is Trevor McGill hurt?
He is.
Yes. Okay. He has a concussion. Yeah.
Concussion.
So that's why he's only thrown 2 innings. So that would be the one where if they were going to try someone else, it would be him, but he's not available. So yeah.
To stream or not to stream for Wednesday, there are some interesting options here. I think Andrew Abbott at the Mariners, Paul Blackburn against the Cardinals, Steven Matz at the A's, Severino against the Pirates, Waka at the White Sox, Dunning at the Tigers. I think they're all viable. Chris, who are your favorite three?
I would probably go.
Even Littell versus the Angels.
Yeah, I think Littell versus the Angels is an interesting one. I'd probably go Abbott, Waka, Severino. Severino versus Littell is interesting. Severino just doesn't have a slider right now. It just has not been a good pitch for him. Also, we didn't mention Carlos Rodon, but his slider looked better today, so hopefully that's a sign of good things to come, but I remain pretty pessimistic about him. But those would be my three: Waka, Severino, and Abbott.
I think I would agree, though. I've got a good feeling about Steven Matz at the Oakland A's as well. On Thursday, it's a very light schedule. There's not much to choose from. Jack Leiter in his debut. Do you dare do it at the Tigers?
It's not a terrible matchup, so I could see it working out. I could see Griffin Canning being okay, but he's been so dismal this season that I don't think you could risk it. So no, I think Jack Leiter is the one if I had to stream anybody, but you probably shouldn't be streaming people on Thursday is the takeaway here.
Yeah, lots of options on Wednesday. Get your streamers in then, and then we'll pick it back up for the weekend. We're going to wrap there. For Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.